Welcome everyone to this awesome campaign countdown, everybody. We've got just 3 days left on this campaign. So it's the final push for Guardians of Elayim #1 on Indiegogo. And we're excited to have the writer with us here to talk to us a little about the campaign and to just help get the word out there. And so without further ado, why don't we welcome in Steve, writer and creator of Guardians of Elayim #1. How's it going?
Doing pretty well. I'm kind of sorry that Mike Nunnally, who normally is involved with a lot of the campaign stuff, couldn't be here today. But unfortunately, he's been hit by wildfires and will not be joining us. Hopefully he'll be back soon, but certainly in time for us to close, I think. But until then, we're kind of in the wire. So we're hoping that as many people as possible can help us out before it stops.
Yeah, that's yeah, definitely. I know you guys have a lot of cool stuff planned for that comic, so I'm really hoping for success there. And even though it is the last 3 days, there's no telling what could happen these last couple of hours. So it's always good to keep pushing and getting it out there.
Well, anything's possible. So,
definitely.
And just to keep in mind, like the whole comic is done. Like everything is finished, like from the coloring, the lettering, and all that. And in addition, you really can't lose with this because even if you join us at the lowest rung, I mean, you still get a copy of the book for free, regardless of whether or not we succeed in our goals or not.
And so that's kind of nice too. That kind of gives people, they can be more assured that they're going to be getting something out of this, and then have to worry about backing it because they know that the comic's completed and they will get their hands on it.
Yeah, I mean there is zero risk whatsoever, and you can just join us on $5 just for the lowest stuff, and you get the Guardians digital regardless of what happens. And if we succeed, you also get a trading card with the White Druid on it. So that's a plus.
Very nice, and so yeah, I know you guys have other comics and stuff as well. You have the White Snake Lady. So is that, do you think that's what we'll be seeing after Guardians of Elayim?
Oh, you're talking about White Druid and I'm sorry, Albino Warrior and Dragon Girl. Yeah,
yes,
that's the next
exactly.
book that is the next book coming out from the Omniverse.
Nice.
I'm not involved in that one. Okay. Mike Nunnally is the one that I believe is writing that. Nice. But Tazan Awasika, who is drawing all of our book, will be drawing that as well, and is our martial arts book. It's going to be dealing a lot with dragons and with Chinese mythology and things like that. So I'm actually looking as forward to it as anybody is. And on top of that, one of our rewards for this campaign is you can be drawn into the issue. So definitely look out for that if you're interested in being part of comics history.
Dude, that's awesome. I love that too because it's a nice way to get in on it and like get you could have yourself or a character or something like that, but it would just be really cool to have that be a part of that comic. That just sounds fun.
Yeah, and I know that Mike was really influenced by the Muhammad Ali and Superman comic, and it would basically be like that for those of you who are not familiar with that. So, there's a lot of space within this particular panel for a lot of people to show up. So, there's still time. If you want to be part of that, there's still time.
Very nice. And that, of course, does really help out with the current campaign as well. I know that's one of the higher tiers, so that definitely helps out a lot. And so not only are you going to be getting into the next book, but it really helps get this book made and get it out there into people's hands. So it all really helps out a lot.
Mm-hmm. Every little bit helps. I mean, even if you're going to jump in at the $5 level, I mean, a lot of people chipping in at $5, and I add with no risk at all. You still, that's a lot of support that can still get us over the edge. So.
It is, yeah. It really does add up. $5, it keeps adding up, and it really does count. So every backer is really important in that way.
Yep, and really all of our Omenauts are really important to us, and we try to give back to them as much as possible.
Now, maybe for those who don't know, or haven't seen some of our past live streams, maybe you could give us a brief rundown of what the comic is about.
Oh, Guardians of Elayim. Basically, the idea of it is that in our universe, all mythologies are true. So the idea really is that we're exploring basically the history of what happened in the ancient past, and it's a time travel series. So we're going to be visiting a lot of different time periods, a lot of mythic history. And I think that's really kind of what sets us apart. The main characters in this series are basically 7 people from Roman Jerusalem through a series of events that you'll see in the first issue cause the death of a god. And because of that, the angels task them to go through time and space and fix the damage that they cause. And so we're going to be seeing them, certainly in the first arc is going to be the Trojan War, for example, and, fixing things there. And, so basically it's a concept that really allows for any kind of story that we want to drop them into. And that's what really excited me about it. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do it.
Very nice. And so what was it about a historical setting that drew you to want to do something like that?
I just like history in general.
Nice.
I just feel like there's just so much to be told, and when you start saying, okay, yeah, we're gonna start off in the Roman Empire, doing a story there, and particularly during the trial of Jesus is where we're going to be starting initially, and that's kind of where the origin of the story comes in. But just being able to explore all of these different time periods, being able to go into any kind of literature that we're both fans of, Michael and I, we're really big fans of things like the Canterbury Tales, for example, and we're going to be dropping them in there at some point.
Nice.
So all of these kinds of things that I really enjoy both as a fan and as a writer are in this book. And, I think every writer has that little thing they want to throw in that's just for them. And this is the thing that I love. So.
And it does allow for such fun interactions too, because like you said, you can have anything from, legends and mythology to religion to, literary characters. So you can have all these interactions that are really unique and allow for a lot of fun moments, I feel like.
Yeah, and and part of the fun also is having them meet actual characters from myth or literature. Dropping them in the Trojan War. I mean, we're certainly going to see characters like Paris and Agamemnon and Achilles very briefly. Those kinds of characters. And so you want to see what would it be like for these new characters, to interact with them, and how do they affect each other, and how does that affect history, and how does that affect the story moving forward?
Interesting, because it's not just going to, like you said, it's kind of a hopping all over the place throughout time.
Right. Yeah, because there are a lot of different places that we want to get them into. But I figure starting off with the Trojan War made sense because the foundation of Rome starts in Troy. And so I wanted to actually confront them with that question. And that's going to be the second arc that we're going to be getting into.
I see. So does the Trojan War get touched on in this first issue then, or is that something we'll see in a future issue?
Seeing future issues. I think we start to see it around the start of issue 2, I believe.
Okay. First issue is more of a kind of setting up the story and the characters and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't really want to bog people too much into things that they don't necessarily have a lot of context for. And so the first issue really is standalone by itself. The second issue, I would say 2 and 3 are more connected, but they're also relatively self-contained.
Okay. Meaning that they tell like their own stories without necessarily having to read the other issues?
Yeah, we provide the context within the issue itself for why they're there and how they can be there and all those things.
Okay, very nice. So it's a very much kind of like a pick up and read if you want to, pick up and put down kind of book.
Yeah, and I felt that was important with this book because this book crosses so much of the Omniverse, and it involves so much mythology, not just like regular mythology, but like Omniverse mythology. A lot of the backstory of various characters. Certainly the White Druid, for example, is very much involved with this book, and so I think it's best to be able to kind of start that. Understanding it on its own terms, rather than having to worry about whether or not you've read Omen or White Druid or anything else that we're doing.
Yeah, that kind of makes me wonder, like, how do you balance the real mythology with the Omniverse mythologies? But how is that a balancing act that you kind of have to play with it?
To a certain extent. I mean, sometimes we had to change things. I know Mike has had to make a few changes, particularly involved with how our god El works, for example, and the role of the world tree or the Elayim tree, as we talk about. There had been certain areas where I know that he's had to fudge a little bit to make it all fit. But at the same time, I like to make things as recognizable as possible. keep as close to the myth that we know as possible. There may be certain times when I'll have to change a few things for the sake of dramatic license. Certainly the Trojan War storyline will have a little bit of that, but I think like the basic thrust of what happens, I try to represent it as fair as possible.
Okay, yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense, yeah. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you approach your historical writing? Like how do you approach your research and all that kind of stuff?
Well, some of it comes down to what do I need to know, and then I try to look into various sources. I do a lot of online digging through. I sometimes you do look for like historical articles and things like this, but I think really a lot of what I need most of the time when I'm writing the script is realizing, oh yeah, I have to physically describe what these characters look like. I have to physically describe what a Greek phalanx looks like, all of these kinds of things. And really, and sometimes, it's kind of funny the things that you have to research. I had to, at one point in the first issue, think about what is the Roman version of latrine duty, because I had to,
totally.
that kind of thing. Like what would have been the equivalent of that? That you find the answer in the issue. So it's just little things like that, and just making sure that it's not blatantly anachronistic, all those sorts of details that you kind of have to manage.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because you never know who's reading. You could have a historian out there reading your comic and would know every little thing about it, right? So
yeah, it's certainly possible.
Right. So it's always good to give that kind of element of authenticity. It really kind of brings you back into that period, I feel like.
Yeah, and I think it really helps that our artist Tazan Awasika is really good at managing the details. He makes it look as accurate as I understand it to be, at the very least. So I'm really glad that at least in the pages that you're going to be seeing, it'll looks like Jerusalem. It definitely looks like these things, and a lot of times I will send him visual references if I'm not sure that he'll get it. So I will send him, pictures and things like that he can use for references, and he actually takes the right things from them. So I'm glad that we have him.
Oh, definitely. He's a very talented artist. There, he has a very unique style. I always love seeing his work.
Now, oh yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. It's like Christmas every time I see something.
Oh, that's funny. Now I know we've talked a lot about kind of the general premise being that after they kill a god, time kind of gets broken and they have to go on this epic journey to fix time and space, or and whatnot. But maybe could you talk to us a little bit? But I know of course you guys are playing it close to the chest. Don't want to spoil too much, but maybe can you go into a little bit about what that might entail? What kind of activities or missions we might be seeing them go on? What can we expect from the action?
Well, I can talk to you about the Trojan War storyline. The thing with that one, and I'm not going to get too much into exactly what causes this. For reasons we're going to get into in issues 2 or 3, basically time gets broken in such a way that there is a risk of the Roman Empire never happening. Because if you look at the Aeneid and you look at the Iliad, a major part of what happens is in that story is that Priam's son, or I want to say nephew, Aeneas, basically has to go and leave Troy before this fall. So he takes a bunch of Trojan survivors and they just get out of there. And we see in the Aeneid what ends up happening. And towards the end of that, and the legend basically is that Aeneas goes on into Latium. And he founds what becomes Rome. But what if that doesn't happen? Then all things might get messed up, and you don't have a Roman Empire. Or if you do have a Roman Empire, it's not recognizable as the one that we know of because it doesn't have that Trojan influence and a lot of the things that came from Aeneas when he took them there. And so what ends up happening? And so a lot of the characters within the Guardians. Some of them are Roman patriots, like Marius is our main character. Others don't like Rome at all for very good reasons. And so they have to figure out, okay, is this something we even want to do? And I have to say that just that thought, the idea that these characters would not necessarily be in agreement about whether this would be a good thing and having to decide that, I thought it was very, very interesting as a writer to deal with.
Mm. So these characters aren't necessarily going to be getting along the whole time.
Oh no, they're a motley crew. I don't think that these
Mm-hmm.
7 people would ever interact with each other or hang out with each other at all if they actually had a choice. They're all they're all come from very very different backgrounds.
Oh my god, that's funny. So yeah, they're not gonna the kind of team dynamic isn't gonna be quite there at I would think necessarily right at the beginning.
Oh no, they're gonna have to learn to work with each other. They're gonna have to learn to tolerate each other in some
Oh
cases.
god.
Yeah, and
Oh, that's
so,
funny.
but they have to do it because if they don't, they get sent into the pit, and they suffer eternal damnation if they fail.
Oh, shit.
That is so. It's like, okay, do I want Rome to die, or do I want to not go to hell? So that's the question that they face, and so yeah,
That's a tough one.
a lot of that is really interesting, and all of that goes into the calculus.
Oh, that's funny. I do like that that you kind of have a dynamic where the characters aren't necessarily getting along because I feel like that usually provides for some like really fun moments or whatever, like where the tension or the they're at odds with each other.
I think of conflict as the engine of drama, and I think
Yeah.
internal conflict is really interesting. I think conflict between characters is really interesting. And if you look at, if you're familiar with White Druid and Michael Nero, I had conflict between those characters as well. And
Really.
with the Guardians, there's definitely a conflict between Marius, who is definitely pro Empire, who is definitely that guy who is about loyalty, versus a bunch of characters who are rogues, frankly. Renan is a thief. Kabosh is a gladiator who was a slave for most of his life, and he despises Rome. Some people were living during the occupation of Jerusalem, and they don't like being on the receiving end of the Roman boot. So when you put all these kinds of people together, and you also add somebody like a princess from a neighboring country, and all of these other kinds of characters, what you get is a very complicated mix that they have to balance out so that they can achieve the goals and hopefully not be damned.
Yeah, that's the goal, definitely. But that's interesting. So they're kind of all from different backgrounds and different cultures, then.
Yes, a number of them are. Some of them are from the same culture. Rivka, who is the sister of Renan, and Renan as well, the thief, are both from Roman Jerusalem. And you also have Marius and Ileana Romilius, who is a Roman patrician's daughter. So they're kind of from more or less the same country, if not the same class backgrounds in most cases. But everybody else, you have a Greek trader, you have a North African gladiator. You have someone from the I would say the Near East, at least modern day Iraq. All these other various influences, and I think that it's a pretty diverse group. From ethnically and class and every other way.
This is kind of like the Avengers of the Omniverse in a way.
In a sense, I don't know. I would kind of lean a little closer to League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Fair enough. Totally, I get what you're coming from with that. Yeah, that's fair. But it's kind of like how do you approach writing for so many characters at one time? Was that a unique challenge for you?
I don't know, not really. I really love teams. I've always have loved teams, and I've always gravitated to teams. Some of my major influences are like '80s groups like the X-Men and the New Mutants, and those kinds of characters. So for me, teams are very easy. I tend to struggle a little bit more when it comes to solo characters because I like to have like a bunch of characters for them to interact with. So with something like Guardians, the only problem is that sometimes you have to kind of make sure that some characters get speaking lines when possible, and it's not always easy to do that with a lot of characters running around. But I think with a group of 7 main characters and then minor characters coming in and out, it's not that big of a deal.
Very nice. Yeah, and so you said there were 7 then total members?
Yes. There's Marius, who is our main character, who is he's a Roman centurion. You have the patrician's daughter, Ileana. Renan the thief, his sister Rivka, Kabosh, who is the gladiator, Nazarene of Parthia, who is a princess, and Cyrus of Alexandria, who Has a bit of a complicated past, but is basically a shady merchant. Let's just put it that
way. Interesting. So, who is the leader of the group? Would you say?
Marius, for sure. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. He's the one who really is at the center of the disturbance, and so he has to be the one to fix it. Everybody else is just trying to make sure that he doesn't do anything stupid.
And does he also does he come from like a leadership position within the Roman, army or something like that?
Yes. At the start of issue 1, we see that he is basically almost kind of like a captain of the guard, that kind of a position.
Mm-hmm.
He works directly for the prefect.
Okay, nice. That's very cool. So then he kind of already has that leadership mentality.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. In a way, I would say he's almost the antagonist of the first issue, if you want to look at it that way. He just doesn't realize it.
Funny. He doesn't realize it. Well, hey, everyone's a hero of their own story, right?
Yes, exactly.
Interesting. So that kind of sets him at odds with the other characters, at least at first.
Yes. Yeah, there's going to definitely be a point where both, so as we see them come together, we kind of see different factions start to form and coalesce and oppose each other to a certain extent, and that comes to a head at the end of the issue.
Okay. And so then, are we going to be seeing any kind of Easter eggs or tie-ins to the other Omniverse books?
Yes, particularly in this issue. There are a couple of them. One involves Jesus himself. He's certainly going to be a major character in the issue. And there's a character that he runs into that is important. There are a lot of cameos. Luo Shi, the White Druid, appears at one point in a blink and you miss a cameo. There's another major character that connects to something called the First Man Project. Later that appears in other titles. Little things like that.
Nice little tidbits that'll really connect the universe together.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we really like everything to be connected. I like the little Easter eggs because that way anybody who knows the Omniverse and sees it will say, okay, that's interesting. There's definitely connective tissue there. Whereas anybody that's coming in and seeing it for the first time, may blink and miss it, and there's no real loss there, or it's something that they may say, look at and say, okay, that's interesting. Maybe there's more of this in one of the other books and may decide to read that. Yeah.
And speaking of which, during this campaign, you guys are also offering a chance to get some of the other books. Is that right?
Repeat that.
So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think you guys are offering some of the other Omen comics in the campaign. Is that correct?
Yes, and some of the higher tier rewards. Nice. Actually, some of them you can get all of our offerings that we put out to date. There's one of them. There's one of them where all of the Omniverse books that we've done are part of that, and then I think there's a higher tier where all of our Revelation Comics books, which
nice.
Don't connect to the Omniverse, are kind of like My Book Blitz and Insurrection, which is the book. The war comic by Tazen, and Mike has scripted that as well. So yeah.
The Revelation comics are kind of like standalone stories or something just separate titles that are separate from that Omniverse.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they're all not part of that. Mike has his own projects that he wants to do for that, and we have Shockwave, which is our science fiction book that eventually we're going to get off the ground at some point. Yeah, so all of these are things that are part of the Omniverse team. But these are things that we want to do that are not constrained by the rules of that universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you guys have tons of stories to tell.
Yeah. And Blitz personally is my passion project, so it's nice to have a vehicle where I can kind of explore a lot of the things that I've always wanted to do without necessarily worrying about stepping on Mike's toes.
That makes sense. Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, and so those are available through the campaign. So you can, I think, one of the higher tiers. I think you might also be able to do add-ons if I'm not sure. I could be wrong about that.
I believe it is one of the higher ones. Yes.
Very okay. And cool.
I want to say, top level Omenaut backer, I believe, is one of these, and silver, on and above, and I think you get that. Let me double check.
Very nice.
Super Omenaut backer.
Very nice, man. And so the link's in the chat there, so people can go check that out. And definitely we need all the support we can get. We're going to be spreading the word here as we count down these last few days. Now, why don't we talk? I know we've talked a little about the comic today, but let's talk a little about the origin of Omniverse. How did you and Michael kind of first come together? start the Omniverse? What was the first comic idea that you guys come up with?
Well, I really was kind of taken a little bit by surprise. I mean, at the time, I knew Mike because he and I were working together on the Chico Comics page, and we were end up reviewing comics and other things, TV shows sometimes, all those kinds of things. And Mike just kind of approached me with the idea of the Omenverse, and at first I didn't know what to make of it because he put so much thought into this, and there's a lot of world building that he puts together. And God bless him for being able to do that. He's very, very good at world building. But it took me a while where I could kind of make sense of it myself. And then he presented the idea of Michael Nero, who is our magic Sherlock Holmes, and Luo Shi. And at first I really kind of thought of like, yeah, I really want to do that because Sherlock Holmes is a character that I have a lot of fondness for. I have kind of like familial connections. My grandfather was a big fan of Sherlock Holmes, so it's like, okay, I'll go ahead and do this, and I really still to this day, love those characters, particularly Nero. That character I absolutely love writing, and Lou is a character that I really enjoy working with as well, and being able to work with him in Guardians as well as in White Druid has really been a joy, honestly.
That's awesome, man. So that's interesting, man. I really do like the idea. So it was kind of like really kind of him coming to you and saying, "Hey, I got this idea," and then you guys kind of taking it from there and really making it your own together, really.
Yeah, I mean, he's always given me a lot of room with which to work creatively. I've been able to add quite a few ideas and my own take to these characters. The Guardians characters, he kind of told me more or less what he wanted in general. But the specifics are things that I was able to work out on my own, and being able to kind of develop those characters and take them forward into all these different kinds of stories. It's really been a lot of fun, and I'm really appreciative that Mike's really been able to give me that opportunity.
No, that's awesome, and it sounds like it's been a really good collaboration with you. Not only just these comics, but this one in particular, the Guardians comic. Sounds like you've been having a lot of fun, kind of making it your own.
Oh yeah, in this particular book, I mean, you can really do anything with these characters, and I can even add or subtract cast members if I want. I can do all kinds of different things with it. Not that I'm necessarily going to, but the idea is there. I have that flexibility, and it's really really nice to be able just to collaborate on something that's this open. With this many possibilities, and that can basically be anything. It's the same thing I love about Doctor Who. You can go anywhere and do anything.
Yeah, that kind of flexibility of storytelling that it allows for, yeah. And interesting. Okay, so what would you say kind of sets this apart from the other Omen comics? When you're reading this comic, does it feel different than the others, or does it kind of feel more or less in line with those?
I would say different, partly because I generally don't connect as directly with the events going on in Kingdom City. A lot of the other books usually involve the main setting of Kingdom City to a certain extent. I know Omen does. I know White Druid does. Guardians doesn't do that. We can go there, but I generally don't spend a lot of time there. Generally, it's just a matter of going through different time periods, going through different worlds, different locations across the world, and just being able to play along with that tapestry. Without necessarily worrying about what's going on in Omen that month or whatever. That kind of flexibility, I think, sets it apart. And also genre-wise, White Druid is very much magical mystery. Guardians of Elayim really is kind of like more Doctor Who by way of mythic history and just dropping people into literature. That itself is very, very different from really anything that we do. And I think that Mike has really kind of worked to make all the different concepts very distinct, occupy their own space, but at the same time feel like a connected universe with all of these backstory elements, the heaven and hell aspects, all the different mythologies that he's worked to weave together, which he's really done amazing at. And, having that backdrop while at the same time every book having its own focus. I think it's the right balance.
Okay, interesting. Very nice. Well, it sounds like
real quick.
Okay.
I do have a quick question.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you might have answered this during the last interview, or even possibly
Sure.
a little bit earlier. It just goes to show if I was paying attention or not. I've been kind of thinking this. Do you guys have a completed outline or anything, or are you still kind of thinking about further stories that you can introduce, or kind of little plot lines that you can kind of use and bring in later on to fulfill those plot lines? Have you guys started any of that, or is it just more of a straight shot for right now?
Yes. Okay. Let's get a little bit more specific about that. We do have an outline. We do definitely have a story arc leading into Tetrad Omega. We've worked out quite a bit after which Tetrad Omega, for those who don't know, is our upcoming big crossover event that we're trying to work to. So all of this stuff is stuff that Mike has detailed plotted out. So he knows a lot of what's going on with that. I have like a lot of various stories that I have planned out between where we are now and Tetrad Omega. I know what the turning points are for that. And I know more or less what's going to happen after that, though there's a lot of room for flexibility, where if I want to drop, the Guardians into the Great Gatsby for an issue, I can totally do that. But at the same time, we definitely have a story arc that we're working towards, and we generally do know what's upcoming and what the beats are.
Gotcha. Okay. So kind of a little bit of this, a little both, really, like where you kind of
I think
know
that's
where
fair.
you're going, but you have room for deviations.
Yeah, that's fair. And I would say also, like, Mike and I are coming up with stuff all the time. So, it's not uncommon for him to come and talk to me and say, yeah, I've got this idea that, I want to play around with Guardians. Would you be willing to do this? And, we would discuss it at that point and see where it works into what we have planned. But all that kind of freewheeling stuff is possible without breaking the tapestry.
No, that's fair. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, actually. That's pretty smart. So, well, that's awesome, man. I'm definitely wishing you guys all the luck with this campaign. Do you guys have any plans for, let's say, like the campaign gets success? What would you do then? What would be your next move, do you think?
Well, I know the next thing that we're going to be doing is Albino Girl and Dragon Girl and Albino War. I don't know why I keep doing that. I know that's the next book that we're going to be going towards, and I know that we have other books that we're putting out as well, and we're always coming up with like new books that we're going to be trying to putting out. He knows this. Mike knows the schedule that's specifically better than I do as far as that goes. I know that he has everything set up. I'm not sure exactly beyond that what the next one is. I'll have to check that, but I know that there is a plan.
And the albino one, is that another contemporary comic set in Kingdom City?
Yes.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. So in fact, we're going to see like one of the schools in Kingdom City, and that's where all that that's where the Draw Me In stuff takes place. So yeah, this all Kingdom City as far as I'm aware.
Very nice. Very nice. So that really does make Guardians very unique in that way, that it's like the only title set in the past, really.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's not just limited to the past. I mean, there are alternate realities that they can go to too. I mean, if I want them to go to Mount Olympus, they can go to Mount Olympus. That that's the kind of thing that Guardians.
Well, I mean, Mount Olympus, exists in the Omniverse.
Yeah, sure.
So of course.
Yeah, I mean, we have an entire like map of all the locations that are accessible to the Guardians. So yeah.
So when you say that, do you mean that they can access it because it's not just a place in time, it's somewhere that a normal person couldn't access?
Yeah. So there are a lot of different realms. I mean, the various heaven and hell type dimensions. There are there's certain alternate worlds that you can go to. Depth dimensions. All these kinds of things. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's not necessarily a physical location on the Earth.
Right.
Ah, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Interesting. Well, do you have a particular time period that you're particularly fond of writing for, or like anything like that?
It kind of depends. I really do like doing the Roman stuff. I do like doing the Greek stuff. I really, really want to do like Musketeer era France. That's just one that really just calls me. I just love the swashbuckling stuff. I would love to do pirates. The golden age of piracy. That would be something that one day I would love to do.
Oh man, you if you guys get to do pirates at some point, I would love it like a title like for the issue like Pirates of Elayim.
that would be interesting. That's something I'll just have to throw past Mike and see what.
Just throw those words out there, see what kind of reaction he has there, man.
Yeah.
But you're right; it is so versatile. It does allow for all these fun, different ways you can do it.
Yeah, and I could probably, although I have not done this and I have not discussed this, I really like samurai, but I don't know if this is going to be the book where I would do that or not.
Interesting. I could see it. I could definitely see that working at some point. Maybe doing like a samurai, ninja type story where they're going in there and having to deal with that.
Well, I already do deal to a certain extent with ninjas and blitz, but it's always possible.
Yeah, and with that being not being part of the Omniverse, this could give you another opportunity to kind of bring some of those themes from the Revelation comics into the Omniverse comics as well.
Yeah. Anything's possible. I mean,
there's a lot of like Japanese folklore and stuff like that you can work with as far as like bringing in mythology and everything for like samurais and ninjas and other stuff like that.
Or even like the spirits, right? Like the way the spirits work,
the Onis and other stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's also possible, and it might also be that we might see something like that in Dragon Girl. I have no idea, but I would say that would be a good fit for that book.
Yeah, I could see that too. Yeah, that does seem like each one of your comics like really allows you to explore a different genre, a different style of storytelling each time.
Yeah, and that's really the idea, is to be able to have these titles that can really kind of delve into these specific areas, and then you have Guardians that can be anything. So
yeah, that's great. Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, Tosin is back, of course, for this comic here. Yes. He's done all the art for all of the Omen comics. Do you think that's going to be the case going forward? Then you guys are going to continue working with Tosin
as much as possible. Much as possible. I love the guy's work. I think that he continues to do incredible stuff for us. I know that Mike has said a number of times that he couldn't imagine anybody else being able to draw the Omniverse stuff, and I have to agree. He's defined the look of the Omniverse, and I think that he's done the same for books like Blitz as well. I can't imagine turning to somebody else at this point, especially when Tarzan is just absolutely killing it every time.
Wow, that's awesome! Yeah, and then it's such an interesting idea too. I do like the idea of like having a shared universe with a unified art style. Like it's not something that I've really seen done before in the comics. Whenever you see shared universe, they tend to have different artists for each issue, and while that is interesting, you can see different art styles. Like it doesn't necessarily give you a sense of unified, like that these are actually existing in the same world. So I do love that. Like when you're reading all these different Omen comics, you really do get that sense of it being the same world because it does have that continuity with the art.
Right, and I think it showed that Tarzan has incredible range, that he's able to draw all these different things and make them all look as good as they do. So yeah, hats on to him for that.
Yeah, that's so true, man. Yeah,
real quick I know you were talking about doing side stories and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Did you have plans on using different artists for the side stories, kind of for like ones that seem more what's the word for it? For more of the filler type of spin-offs or side stories, did you plan on having different artists for those, or still use Tosin for everything?
Right now, we're using Tosin for everything. I haven't. I'll just say that we have no plans of changing things up at this moment in time.
That's always good to hear. That's good to hear.
Mm-hmm. And do you guys have any ideas, like for expansions? Will we ever see any short stories or novels or any kind of other mediums, within the Omniverse?
I have thought about well, maybe not Omniverse necessarily. I have thought about doing some of my own stuff in terms of prose, but I haven't. As far as Omniverse, I'm not aware of any plans like that. But I would say never say never.
Interesting. Yeah, I could see that. Maybe I wonder if you could release that under Revelation, even though it's not a comic technically. You know what I mean? But it could fall under Revelations, possibly.
Sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. I definitely know. I'd be curious to see more about that.
Yeah, I'm really definitely interested in doing prose projects, but we'll see.
Yeah, have you ever tried tackling any kind of short story or long form prose before?
Actually, I have had a short story published this year from ASAP Comics UK.
Very
Basically,
cool, man.
yeah, it's a charity
Congratulations.
anthology for
Oh,
dyspraxia.
wow.
So what
That's
I
really cool,
submitted,
dude.
yeah, what I submitted was a post-apocalyptic dark fantasy story called Blood and Ashes. I was actually, I was actually kind of inspired a little bit by Michael Moorcock and Elric, but it kind of like imagine that kind of character in a post-apocalyptic wasteland where magic has come back. So that, yeah, so the story kind of deals a little bit with this wandering swordswoman who stumbles across a creature who should not be a creature, and then she has to find a way of dealing with it and
Oh, wow, that sounds
dealing the
cool.
magical forces behind it.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Wow, man, I like that. That's interesting. So, you did this for this charity event, or is it
Sure.
an anthology? You said.
Yes, it's called
Ah,
Perspectives.
perspective.
From
Interesting.
yeah,
So, can people
from
pick that up
ASAP
then?
Comics UK. Yeah. Huh?
So, can people pick that up online then?
Yes, it's on Amazon. You can find it.
Oh,
Yeah,
excellent.
it's very, very easy to find that. It's also in print. If you want a print copy, you can buy a print copy.
Well, that's really cool, man. And give us the title and the publisher one more time there.
Yes, Perspectives and Anthology, and it's by ASAP Comics UK.
Perfect. Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I definitely encourage people to go check that out.
Yeah, it's amazing, and there are a lot of other writers as well in it. Quite a few of which I know, and they're really, really great people who are told some really, really great stories within this book. So it's not just me; it's a lot of really, really awesome people.
And it sounds like it's for a good cause as well.
Yes, Paul Hayden, who is the editor-in-chief at ASAP, has a son who's dealing with dyspraxia, and that kind of inspired him to work with the Dyspraxia Foundation to do this. And a lot of the proceeds are going to that charity.
Well, that's excellent. That's very good. And yes, and congratulations on getting that out there. That's really awesome to hear.
Oh, well, thank you.
No, you're very welcome. And so you've written this one, of course, Guardians of Elayim #1. You mentioned you wrote Blitz for Revelation Comics. Do you have any more plans to write other titles for either Revelation or Omen Comics going forward?
Yes. Now, eventually, I do want the Blitz universe to kind of expand a little bit, but that's not going to be anytime in the near future. We'll be doing Shockwave, which is a science fiction book that I'm going to be working with Mike to a certain extent on. So that I'm hoping that that's kind of a little bit long term, but I hope it won't be too long before it comes out.
Is that kind of like a big epic that you guys are planning?
Let's just say epic things happen in it. Yeah. So basically, I was kind of inspired because I used to live in South Texas, and around the time Hurricane Harvey hit, I was very struck how people were coming together in the aftermath of that, and I kind of wanted to explore that in terms of a sci-fi epic. What happens when you have a big cataclysmic event that kind of basically shatters interstellar society? And how do you come back from that? And if you come back from that, how do you come back? And what do you come back as? And so that was sort of the big question. So that kind of leads to the idea of an interstellar event, let's just say, that hits the Earth pretty hard, leaving the outer planets to sort of fend to a certain extent for themselves. By this time, there's already a certain amount of galactic settling. There are planets that are fully settled with colonies and all of the sorts of things, and so they're basically kind of left to survive on their own, not having the central planet to hold them together. And so, what ends up happening when that happens, and what is the aftermath of that, and what is the end game of that? That's what Shockwave explores.
Damn, that sounds pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really, really fun concept. I didn't want to go necessarily with the Star Trek sort of utopian future, but at the same time, I have gotten really, really tired of everything goes badly. I wanted to more delve into the idea of hope in the midst of ruins, shall we say.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Like whenever we see any kind of vision of the future, especially these days, it tends to be much more darker. That's like the kind of trend.
Yeah.
Like everything's a dystopia or everything, you know what I mean? Or post-apocalyptic or whatever.
Yeah, and really what I wanted to say is, okay, yeah, you can have that. I mean, you can have bad things happening, but a lot of it is how do you look at it? A lot of these stories really tend to look at it in terms of everything is bad. We're driven to destroy ourselves. There's no hope, etc. I would like to look at it in terms of, it's possible to recover. We have recovered. Humanity in general has recovered from really terrible things. The Roman Empire fell. I mean, badly. We had the Dark Ages. We came back from that. So I would say never underestimate the human capacity to survive and recover.
No, yeah, that is well said. I totally agree with that. Yeah. Now, kind of switching gears a little bit. I'm curious if this is something that's ever been discussed or if you've ever been asked this, but do you guys ever see a possibility for any kind of other universes, like let's say a Blitz universe, or do you see any kind of multiverse ever forming, like an Omen multiverse? How do you guys approach that, or have you ever talked or discussed about it?
Yes. Now the Blitzverse definitely is a thing. It's just one of those things that's going to take some time for it to grow. I have other characters in mind for that universe. I definitely have other titles that I would like to do when we get far enough into that.
That's cool.
But that is a long-term thing. Other universes, not that I can talk about right now. Certainly none that I know of specifically that Michael wants to talk about.
So really, everything kind of really focusing on the Omniverse for now.
Yeah, I would say for the time being. Yeah, and our other, and just like branching out with Revelation. I know that there's other things that Trojan wants to do, but we'll talk about that when the time is better to discuss that.
And so, how far do you guys see Omen Comics and Guardians going? I know you guys have a lot of big plans, but how many issues do you foresee, coming out with these? Is this something that's going to be an ongoing, long-term series?
I would say ongoing, long-term for as long as we can do it. That's always sort of the big thing, It's
fair
like
enough, yeah.
if we can get enough support on these books so that we don't have to constantly come out with our hands out to do that, that would be nice.
Yeah, really. I think that's always the key, isn't it? How long you can keep it going. Yeah,
right.
That definitely, especially for us indies out there.
Yes, it's always it's the ongoing struggle. I mean, we want to be able to tell the stories that we want to tell, but at the same time, we're pretty much a lot of these things are up to you guys as fans and as readers and what you guys want to see. So, if you guys want to see it, then we'll keep doing it.
Yes, definitely. That means that you guys, if you want to see this book, please go back it and spread the word, because it really does. That's how these books get made. Is if you get if you guys show up from them, then they can keep coming back and making more of these. So it really is up to the fans. It really does come down to that. Now I know you mentioned a little bit about your sci-fi series and kind of explaining how in that world, like the outer worlds are cut off from the inner world a little bit. Do you guys play around in Guardians or maybe the Omniverse as large with other worlds? Are there other inhabited planets, or is Earth really the focus of the Omniverse?
I will say yes to that, but I'm not at this point ready to talk specifics.
Not at liberty.
But I will say we have talked about that.
Okay, interesting. Okay, well, that kind of gives us something nice to look forward to potentially down the line there.
Very nice, I hope so once we get there.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Now, of course, we've talked a little about, you mentioned wanting to do some different things like a Great Gatsby and going to the certain different time periods. But if you had to choose one character, whether it be from history, from mythology, from literature, if you could write with one character you haven't gotten a chance to do so far, which character do you think you would go with?
Oh, man, that's a really tough one. I really want to do D'Artagnan. I just really want to do that Three Musketeers story. Yeah.
What is it about that story that really draws you to it, do you think?
I think I just love the fact that it very much is on the surface. That era of France has a lot of intrigue behind it. There's a lot of scheming and a lot of backbiting under a very elegant surface. I mean, everything looks, very posh, very refined. And under that, they're just, sending people to assassinate each other. They're doing these kinds of conspiracies, poisoning each other, all this kind of crazy stuff that was going on. And you had, King Louis. Well, once we get to Louis the 14th, it gets really, really crazy. But even with Louis the 13th, a lot of it was just power struggles. With the cardinal, with Anne of Austria, all these kinds of things going on. And it's just such a really interesting time period to talk about. And then you have this guy, D'Artagnan, who is a Basque. He's a Gascon. And, he is the honest man in the middle of all of these serpents. And he has to, do his job and guard the king in the middle of all this stuff going on. And that to me is really, really fascinating. How do you keep your integrity in this court where all of these things are happening, politically in the background? It's just so fascinating.
That makes a lot of sense. It's that political intrigue. It's kind of like that. It's almost it's familiar, but not at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and honestly, I really love swashbuckling. I like things that are outwardly fun. Where you can have a sense of humor. The Musketeers have always been a very lighthearted series, even with all of that depth and all of that darkness under the surface. And I really like that contrast, the light surface and the darker underbelly.
And it kind of feels like it would really work with the themes of Guardians, because with the whole one all for one for all kind of thing. I feel like the Guardians really could learn a thing or two from them.
Yeah, and I feel like D'Artagnan and Marius are similar in some respects.
Interesting.
They're definitely people about doing the right thing. And it's just that D'Artagnan, I think, has done a better job of maintaining his integrity than Marius has.
Really? Is that because of something that Marius does, or is that to no fault of his own kind of thing?
More through no fault of his own. I mean, the real problem really is that Marius is somebody who's very big on blind loyalty, and I don't think that D'Artagnan is as much.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah. Well, that would be a fun one. That definitely would be really interesting to do. A little crossover there.
Yeah, I'm hoping one day we'll be able to do that.
Yeah, that's been the idea. Like, be able each issue kind of exploring a new time period. Is that the idea, or are you guys going to linger in time periods? How do you approach that?
Well, it really kind of depends on the story. I mean, some of them, it's a good idea to kind of let them stay for a couple of issues.
Gotcha,
and then there are stories that it might be like one issue. Certainly, like the Canterbury Tales story I want to do would be one.
The Canterbury Tales. That's the one about like the pilgrimage, right? I think, isn't that what the book's about?
Right. Yeah. The whole this is early England. This is like ye old England, where you have all these different people from different classes. They're kind of marching in a pilgrimage towards Canterbury, and they're sharing tales at the inn, by the fireside, and they're all very different stories by very different people. But you learn so much about the characters that are telling the story from the stories that they're telling.
Oh, that's fascinating.
And that's something that would be fun to play with, I think.
Yeah, that's really, and that even just as coming from a literary standpoint, that's just kind of such an interesting idea of learning about the characters as they tell these stories. Like, right, that's such a unique way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, so you have, for example, the Miller's Tale. The Miller is a very bawdy, sort of working class guy, and so that's the kind of story that he tells. Is basically involves all these kinds of things.
Yeah,
the Partner's Tale. Yeah, the Partner's Tale involves a lot more seediness and corruption. Those kinds of things.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, and I do know they kind of, from what I understand, very loosely, kind of took some inspiration on the movie The Knight's Tale, based on that Canterbury Tales, I believe, right?
Correct. And Chaucer, I believe, even is a supporting character in the movie. But yeah,
that's right.
Very loosely inspired.
Yes.
Yeah. I did like it, funny. By the way.
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah. Well, that's cool. Yeah, that would be really fun, and I just think there's so much you can do with it. It's such an interesting idea, and I just love the concept and the characters, and it just seems like it's all coming together really nicely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really fun to do, and I mean, there are a lot of different parts, and I'm always thinking about ideas, all the time for it. So yeah.
Now, we should, just to let everyone know, of course, there's only a few days left to back the book, but you guys are doing kind of a thing that's really awesome. The book is getting made right now. And so, regardless of whether the campaign reaches its goal, you guys are going to, for those who back it, give out the book. Is that right? How does that work exactly?
My understanding is that you're going to be getting the digital copy of it. I want to say it's PDF.
Nice.
I am not 100% sure on that, so don't take that as gospel, but I think that is the case. But you will be getting a digital copy regardless of whether we succeed or fail. And
really nice.
The book will be done regardless of whether we succeed or fail. We got everything done and completed, so don't worry about it coming to fruition or not.
And I think that's just such a really nice, bonus guarantee for people. Like, I know some people will hesitate backing, things that maybe they're not familiar with or haven't backed before, but just the fact that the book's going to get out there, and even for those who support you, and even if you don't get the goal, like, they still get to enjoy that comic. So I do feel like that is going the extra mile for the reader and for the people who are supporting you.
Yeah, and really the people that we've had supporting us have been really, really generous. Some of them. I want to shout out particularly to Greg, who is at Greeland at Twitter. That guy was really, really generous, and I was just absolutely blown away by his gesture of support with that. And I really appreciate what he's done, as well as everybody else who has backed us. I feel like everybody is pushing us towards a goal, even if it's little by little. And I appreciate all of you guys that have given us money, and anybody's even thinking about it. But just kind of keep in mind, you cannot lose at this point. This book is made. It is done. It is going to happen. And if you even give us the $5 tier, you're going to get the book regardless of whether or not we reach our goal or not. Can't lose.
Very nice, man. Yeah, I know, right? Exactly. It's like a win-win situation. There's no downside there. There's no risk for it. So that is very nice. And of course, the campaign is looking great. The art looks awesome. People should go check it out. I'll put the link up there on the screen one more time. But go check it out, guys. There's a lot of really cool tiers. There's, I think, upwards of 7 comics being offered. And if you look at like all the other Omens and Revelations comics that you can get at some of the higher tiers. And so there's a lot of cool stuff to get into here. And
I hope you look through everything. There should be something for everybody. Just contribute as much as you want, but I'm hoping that at least you'll spend the time to look at it and really think about what we have to offer. We have lots of plans upcoming, and if this is the kind of book that you want, please help us. We really, really appreciate all our Omenauts and all the people that have supported us and continue to.
Well, that's awesome, man. Well, is there anything you want to tease about or hint at for the future of the Omniverse or anything like that?
I will say that at this point where I'm at, where I'm scripting, we're going to be very, very soon getting into the White Druid and his role with the Guardians. He is going to be gradually more involved in their activities over time. So that's something I'm really, really looking forward to showing. You get to see the Guardians in Camelot. That's something I'm really, really looking forward to digging into.
That does sound awesome. Yes. Oh man, I love that. Camelot, it feels like there could be a lot of really good stories there, I feel like.
Yeah, I definitely have interesting ideas of where this is going. And really a lot of stuff that's going to end up happening in that story will reverberate to later stories if the cards play right.
Nice. So you got a lot of plans for the future, it sounds like.
Yes.
Very nice, man. Well, I appreciate that, man. And I'm just gonna go ahead and I just double me. You may be seeing double. Don't worry, your viewer, you're RK. There's nothing going wrong. I just wanted to share the screen here real quick before we, as we start to wrap up here. I do just want to share some of the art here on the campaign page. Like I said, you guys can go check this out for yourself. But just to kind of quickly go through it and show you some of the cool stuff. It's got a lot of really cool art. Yeah. With we get to see, I think this is Marius here. Is that right on the left?
Yeah, the top left. That I don't know. That's not Marius. That is actually okay. That is the prefect. Yeah, you'll see sense. Marius. Yeah. Marius is in the bottom right of that page.
Okay.
Yeah, and we see a flashback of him in the middle, wearing the Roman centurion armor.
I do love this. I love this this page here, or this panel, as whichever you want to call it there. But I love this one because it shows all the different characters, but it really gives you that sense of like, oh, this is not just like a comic or historical comic, but there's like an element of sci-fi to it, which I think is so cool.
Yeah. Yes. I don't know if I can get too much into that, or at least what is specifically going on with Hassan Toth. Just keep in mind that there is somebody of importance in the 20th century who is keeping tabs on what the Guardians are doing, and that splash page is an introduction to them, but it is also basically him keeping tabs on them and keeping a file on them.
And which I love because it hints to a larger mystery at play, which I think is super cool and makes you want to like keep reading and say, okay, well, I want to know where this is going. Like, what is this all about? And I like it's like almost like this dossier that we're seeing. You know, like you can kind of see the word Messiah if you really look closely. It's almost written out there in full. And so there's all these little hints and of what's to come.
Yes, and I will say that I do have plans to address this particular thing later on down the road, but it's going to take a little while to get there.
Fair enough. That's kind of the fun thing. You don't want to give all the secrets right away. That's kind of the fun of having that mystery, I feel like.
Yeah, and I will say that Hassan Toth, who's the character that we meet here, is going to definitely have a role in another book that we're doing.
Oh, nice. So we'll be seeing more of him very shortly then.
Yeah,
very nice. This is another great page here, just showing some of the architecture of I believe it was Jerusalem.
Yes, that is Roman Jerusalem.
Nice.
The guy in the hood in the back is Kabosh, and I believe that is Renan standing in front of him.
Nice, very nice. Yeah, and just really great art, really great. I feel like the art and the coloring and like inking, it all just comes together so well. Like he really has a knack for putting it all together.
Yeah, and if you want to see his process, I believe there's a video on the Omen Comics YouTube channel where we actually see that process in there. So if you want to see how Tosin does his work, you go ahead and visit that and look for yourself.
Well, that's excellent, man. And this one says, even like you got this kind of editor's tag here where it says, "Who is this man? See Omen #2 for more." So yeah, see even then you're kind of tying it back in with the larger Omniverse.
Yeah, this was one of those things where Mike, I think, was influential because I think he, like I do, really kind of enjoy the way that you did footnotes like in the 80s comics.
Oh yeah,
where you would see references to other issues or these little side references. Yes, who is this character? Read this to find out.
Yeah, so yeah, I still see that every now and then.
Yeah.
That's nice, man. That's a nice touch. I like that. Like whenever I see that pop up, I like you said, it's that throwback to that classic comic style,
Yes.
It brings that, and for me, it's almost like it's got that little hit of nostalgia with it,
Yeah, I like the stylistic techniques. So while I don't delve too much into them, I'm not huge into thought balloons, for example. There are things from there that I really like using when they're appropriate.
Oh, okay, yeah, when it feels like the moment really calls for it.
Right.
That's fair. And here we see another great shot. I really like this page too. That it says a dynamic page here.
I really love what Tosin did with that page. Yeah. So that's Kabosh in the upper left. That is Nazarene of Parthi in the middle. And then we see Marius on the right, bottom right.
Nice. First meetings are never easy.
Oh, no. and yes, and some of them are going to be painful, physically painful.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. And of course, we got the epic cover that Tosin did there.
Oh yeah, I honestly think that with the variant cover that we see here, he actually did a better job than he did on the original one. But this is Tosin sometime afterwards, and he's a bit more seasoned at this point, and I think it shows. And honestly, I just love the Crown of Thorns imagery. It was just so good that I just realized, I have to use this somewhere.
That is a nice detail, yeah.
So expect to see more of that.
And so this is the variant cover then that you're offering?
Yeah, that's the variant cover that's offered in the rewards, and it's one of the lower rewards. So yeah.
Okay, so nice. There's a good chance like people can get on that one.
Yes.
Very nice. And then you can just go into the the usual about where money's going and all that good stuff. Now this is a trading card, right, that you guys are offering?
Yeah, that's a trading card. The art is by Tosin, and I believe that some of these are going to be signed. I know that Mike has initialed a number of them. I'm in the process of initialing the ones that I have. Yeah, by the time that it's done, it should be initial.
Very nice. And of course, there's a preview here for the Dragon Girl Albino Warrior book.
Yeah, that's the book that if you want to be in a comic, that's the comic you'd be in.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's a really nice cover. I mean, I can't argue with anything Tozen has done, and I think he definitely does throw in a lot more of that Eastern influence in there.
Yeah, you definitely get the sense that, like you said, this is a martial arts book. It really brings across the aesthetic and the themes that you guys are trying to go for.
Yeah, I mean the gi outfits are very, very nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are. Yeah, I can't wait to see more about that one. That's gonna be interesting.
I'm just as interested as you are. I'm kind of on the outside looking in on that one. Yeah, that one is really, really, really well told. I really feel like Tozen's visual storytelling has gotten a lot more dynamic over time. I think that shows in that page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the angles and just how everything's laid out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even just how you can get so much without any dialogue.
Yes. The dog, by the way, has some importance.
Yeah, I was gonna say those eyes. Look at those eyes. That ain't no normal dog.
No, he's not. Well, yeah, that's one of those where you're gonna have to look into a number of Omniverse books to really get an idea of who he is.
Interesting. That's like one of the layered, kind of like for the more layered Easter eggs for the more hardcore fans out there.
Yes. Nice. Yeah, you're going to take note of Jesus's reaction to him and why he reacts that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, clearly he knows something's out there.
Maybe.
That's awesome. And I actually think this is the last preview we have, but for the pages. But I think this is a really good page here.
Yeah, that's Hassan's Hoth there.
Yeah, I was gonna say exactly. Yeah, and you said we're gonna learn more about him in one of the other Omniverse books.
Yes, it's a book called Dark Oracles. In fact, that may be one of the ones that is upcoming after this. Yeah, and that one is basically smaller stories that are set throughout the Omniverse, and it pretty much is a book where we have a lot of flexibility to fill in certain gaps.
And this is something that I just really love, because I do love that it's got a science fiction element on top of everything, kind of a modern day element, it looks like, which kind of really adds to the dimension of saying, what is this? It's not just a time travel story. It's not just this, legends and mythology, but it's got this whole other aspect that we're gonna want to learn about and find out more as we go on.
Yeah, I mean, I would say all of the Kingdom City sort of base books have a little bit of that to it, just because. Yeah, so you have a lot of the corporate intrigue. You have a lot of the, more science fiction angles to it, more superhero elements. But it's also got a lot of other stuff. So it's a nice little mix that we put together.
Most excellent. Yeah, you guys have really crafted such an interesting story. Even within the Omniverse, it feels like it sets itself apart and is unique and different from, what we've seen you guys do before.
We try.
That's awesome, man. Well, as you guys, as we mentioned, it is getting down to the last few days here. So there's 3 days to back the book. So please go check it out. I'm going to put the link up on the screen here one more time. But what would you say to people out there who are watching the stream who have yet to back the book? Is there anything you like to say to those people who are kind of considering supporting you guys?
Yeah, it's just I would say that if you have $5 and you're considering getting in, that $5 is perfectly fine, and you can't really lose with that $5 because your $5 is going to get you a free digital copy of the book, regardless of what happens. And if you like what you've seen so far in the previews, if you like Tozen's artwork, if you like the kinds of stories that we've talked about, and you're considering getting in, I would say that jump in if you want to spend the money. I hope that you will, because we're going to try to reward whatever it is that you give us, even if it's just faith, But if you want to go higher than that, we certainly would appreciate that. But even if it's just $5, I mean, $5 gets you quite a bit, and you really can't lose with the $5. We hope you'll support us.
That's excellent, man. I hope people will support as well. I think you guys got such an excellent story, and the art speaks for itself. I think people are going to be having such a fun time with this journey. So I really do hope people support this book. It's down to the last 3 days, so it really needs the support here. It's got a long ways to go, but I definitely know it can happen if it gets the right amount of people. So just please, even if you can't back it, share it out there, get the word out. And I know there's some people out there going to love this, so please go ahead and show it to those people if you're not one of them, and if you are, go ahead and back it because it really does help out. And,
yeah, every little bit helps, even if it's $5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every little bit helps. It adds up. It really does. Well, thank you again, man. I appreciate you taking some time with us to talk today. We'll be rooting for you over the next couple of days and help getting the word out there ourselves, and really rooting for you.
Well, I really appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. I'm kind of sorry that Mike wasn't here to kind of give his angle of this, but he will be back on Tuesday. If you want to keep up with us and what's going on, Comics Omen on Twitter is where you can find Mike once he comes back. For right now, I'm on Twitter at Shadewing that's kind of like more my personal stuff. Revelation Comic on Twitter is really where I do more of the campaign related stuff. But I usually will share that kind of stuff. So hopefully if you want to keep in touch with the campaign, what we're doing and what books we're going to be doing after that, please follow us.
Excellent. Well, thank you again. I appreciate you taking some time to talk with us, and thanks for everybody who's watching, live or repeat. And go check out the book. Links up on the screen, guys. So check it out. It's gonna be really awesome. And we'll see you on a future stream.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Take care, guys.